Yo, to the community. Welcome in, man. It's another day. This is the third day of the NBA team previews for the 2022-2023 NBA season. I'm gonna make it short, man. I'm not trying to, have people here too long on a Saturday, but I do, like I said, I committed to this, so it's what I'm gonna do. Every single day, now until the NBA season start, I will be doing these NBA team previews. Today we have the Minnesota Timberwolves and we had the Cleveland Cavaliers. JR Sports, appreciate you being here, my brother. Appreciate you being here. Um, Real quick before we get started, as always, what is the team preview? The team preview is just, me myself. I'm a big NBA guy. Brought the community together to hold spaces last year to do NBA shows, to give out my looks, give out my takes on what I'm expecting from these NBA teams this year. We made a lot of money, so a lot of this is about gambling as well. And I always like to say, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. So when NBA sports betting is when it's in full fledged 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks from now, we already be locked in. We already be tapped in. That's why I'm doing these shows to kind of just familiarize people with what happened in the off season. So that's what the team preview is. I already talked about why I'm doing it. How am I going to do it? It's going to be a 5 or 10 minute breakdown. Just me myself, kind of talking about the games. If I got people that's interested in being able to share what they want to, what they want to talk about or comments they want to make, maybe they disagree with some of the things that I say and some of my takes, then other people will be able to kind of chime in as well. Other than that, we're gonna keep it moving on to the next team, and after we finish the second team, we'll be finished with that episode for the day. All the episodes can be found on my page. Yesterday, we did the Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks. So far we've done the Brooklyn Nets, the Atlanta Hawks, the Clippers, and on the first day, the Eastern Conference team was I'm having a blank right now. But if you missed any of those episodes, feel free to go back and kind of check those out. We talked about a lot of different things already, a lot of different teams already, and a lot of great input and insight has been shared already. So I would definitely encourage you to check that out. Everything is can be viewed on my YouTube page. The Twitter Spaces are recorded as well. But we're gonna go ahead and get into it, man. So the first day we did the Pelicans. That's what it was. The Pelicans and the Hawks have been completed already. The Clippers and the Nets, and then we're on day 3. The Timberwolves and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tomorrow we'll go live a little earlier. We'll break down the San Antonio Spurs and the Chicago Bulls. Spurs probably going nowhere fast after losing DeJounte. But we're gonna talk about the Bulls. They get Lonzo back. They signed DeMar DeRozan. So we'll get into that. We'll get into a little bit of this to the Chicago Bulls tomorrow. But with no further ado, man, let's just go ahead and let's jump straight into these two teams. If you're on the YouTube page, you can see I'm in Minnesota Timberwolves locker room right now. They got a hell of a locker room over here in Target Center. This is a nice locker room. And we'll start there. Let's start with the Timberwolves. So Timberwolves specifically, I feel like the Timberwolves pushed all their chips into the middle of the table, man. They got some key additions. They bring in guys like we can't forget this the biggest one. You signed for Rudy Gobert, give up a lot of pieces to get him, and I think that's why they kind of pushed all their chips into the middle. But other than signing for Rudy Gobert, which some people I know are on the fence about whether they think it's going to be a good deal or be a bad deal, you signed Cat to a 4-year extension, which I know that makes him excited and super happy. But then also, Cal, you bring in slow mo. Cal Anderson comes over from the Memphis Grizzlies. They gave him a 2-year contract. CJ Eldeby, who was on, he played for Portland last year, a part of that Portland team towards the end of the year. He was getting a lot of burn when they weren't playing that well. So you got CJ Eldeby, but then you also get guys like Byron Forbes. He came over from Denver. He ended up signing the contract. You get Eric Pascal. Pascal came over from in the trade with Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz. Then Austin Rivers also came over as well from Denver. And you get Taurean Prince in that deal as well. I'm sorry, you get Taurean Prince who returned on a 2-year deal. I'm sorry about that. Taurean Prince is also still there, even though I did see his name kind of pop up for some bad stuff he had been doing in the news, a little mugshot. We won't talk too much about that, but yeah. So they get their core group of guys back. And of course when I talk about who we lose, I'll jump into that real quick. So you lose Okangi to the he ended up going to the Suns. Malik Beasley was traded to the Jazz. Patrick Beverley was traded to the Jazz, and then of course joined the Lakers. Then you also lose Jared Vanderbilt. So those are key contributors as far as bench wise, but you retain guys like D'Angelo Russell. You bring back Anthony Edwards, whose name was mentioned in the media for the the comments the comments that he made recently, the gender specific comments he made recently in the news. So the big three: D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards all return, and you add some serviceable guys. So I know when the deal first went down, in addition to the draft picks that they had already gave up, I thought that they had gave up a lot. I'm like, man, this team actually gave up a lot. They needed those guys because a lot of the times last year those guys stepped up. Malik Beasley played big for them. Patrick Beverley was a vocal leader for that team to help them get back to the playoffs for the first time in a while. Jared Vanderbilt was somebody who took away, your big man, and rebounded the ball pretty well, did his job, never complained. So you don't like all those subtractions, but they actually brought in some guys that I think are serviceable and that can get the job done to replace those guys that I just kind of talked about. So this team's going to look a lot different this year than it did last year. Like I talked about, all the additions, all the subtractions, but you keep those core group of guys. You keep your big three and you just bring in some pieces. The name that I didn't mention that I also think is extremely important is Jared Vanderbilt. I'm sorry, not Jared Vanderbilt. I talked about Jared Vanderbilt getting traded to the Jazz. Jaden McDaniels. If you watch Jaden McDaniels towards the end of last season, this dude has a super, super high ceiling. I think his development over the offseason, haven't really been paying attention to him specifically, but I do think a guy like Jaden McDaniels is probably working on his game and takes his game to the next level, to be an even more serviceable piece. We saw the coach rely on him a lot last year, and he stepped up to the challenge. He ended up playing, some minutes that I think that none of us thought that he would play because of how well he played late into the season. So as far as the last season recap, the Minnesota Timberwolves were one of the best offensive teams in the league last year. We watched them score the ball at ease on most nights. We played a lot of their team totals to go over in the first quarter, along with the Memphis Grizzlies to go over in the first half. Anthony Edwards threes were sometimes in play. D'Angelo Russell threes were sometimes in play as well. Cat rebounds was something that we talked about on given nights, depending on the matchup. So I think this team, I think they slow it down just a tad bit. As far as pace, they were one of the fastest paced teams in the league throughout majority of the season. But I think they slow it down. You can't go but so fast when you have Rudy Gobert. So it's going to be interesting to see how he changes the game. I'm also interested to see if at all he works with Cat to try to develop some kind of offensive game. We saw last year, not even just last year, throughout the course of his career, Rudy Gobert does not get buckets, right? Unless he's just running toward the rim and somebody not named Donovan Mitchell, who actually enjoys passing him the ball, is throwing him the ball, he just doesn't score. So I'm interested to see if Rudy Gobert is at all working with Cat to try to develop some kind of offensive game, maybe one or two moves that he can use as a go-to. And then, vice versa. I'm interested to see if Cat improves his defensive game just being around Rudy, right? This is something that we saw last year when James Harden when he went to Philly with the guard. His name is I'm blanking on his name right now, but sometimes when you get these players who have such great skill sets on one end of the floor, but they lack on the other end of the floor, and not to say that Cat's not a good defender, but one thing we can say about Rudy Gobert is he's in the league because he rebounds the ball and plays so well on the defensive end. He's always going to leave it all out there. So I'm interested to see what how they work. I'm also a guy that's of the mindset that Cat can play the four. I think Cat can do a really good job of playing the four. I think he moves well vertically. I think Cat moves well enough to be able to guard fours in the league. So it doesn't really concern me as much that Cat is going to be, guarding the 4 and not really guarding the 5s. We also know that Rudy Gobert gets all the rebounds anyway. So maybe looking towards Karl Anthony Town rebounds under, depending on who the 4 is on the opposite team, is going to be a look that, a lot of us are probably going to key into as well. That's just from a gambling aspect. And those are the things that I kind of thought about. So as far as the recap, getting back into the recap, the team, ran at a fast pace last year. I think it slows down a little bit this year, having Rudy Gobert, but also I think there's a high level of expectations, and I talked about the team kind of pushing the chips into the middle for this team. The team, the general manager, kind of pushing the chips in and bringing Rudy Gobert in, giving up everything that they gave up for him. I'm interested to see what that ceiling is for them. Do they bowl well? Do they click well? Right? Can D'Angelo Russell stay healthy? Can D'Angelo Russell actually perform in the postseason? We saw him in that series against Memphis when they were eliminated. His numbers dropped exponentially. I know. I remember being back in the first game of the series. I took his threes. He played well against Memphis in the first throughout the regular season, just knocking down 3 after 3, and he never really got it going. If you go look back, I hadn't even went back and look at his numbers. I just kind of remember him. He never really got it going. So I'm interested to see what that looks like for him if he comes out, wants to play with a chip on his shoulder, and what that expectation is going to be, especially losing somebody like Patrick Beverley, who is a vocal leader on this team. Those are, kind of my thoughts and recap. This team did end up losing, of course, but they went super far. They made it to the play-in game, won the play-in game, which is when Patrick Beverley was crying. After the play-in game, the first round, they got Memphis, and stood toe-to-toe with Memphis. They stood toe-to-toe with Memphis. I think I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, they stole game 1 in Memphis. And then things just kind of seesaw back and forth throughout the series. In Memphis, they gave Memphis everything that they had, though. They definitely gave Memphis everything that they had. And I think that they overseeded their expectations last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. As far as last season, they finished 46-36. This year, they're projected to win 48.5 games. I looked this up probably 2 or 3 days ago on BetMGM. So with a projected win total of 48.5, the books are saying that given all the changes, they still expect this team to win about 3 or 4 more games. The Minnesota Timberwolves, do we think that they are going to be a 50-win team? Because 48.5 is damn near 50, right? So if they win 48.5 games, they win in 49. You win 49, you're really close to 50. I wonder, I'm just interested from you guys if you guys think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be a 50-win team. I could see it. I think I could see it. This team is not really predicated on health. We talked about the shows yesterday, kind of breaking down. We broke down the Los Angeles Clippers, and we talked about the Eastern Conference team. What was the Eastern Conference team? We talked about the Brooklyn Nets and how health was going to play a big factor in both of those teams being successful this year. But I don't really, look too much into the health for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Strength of schedule, they also have the 4th easiest schedule. I got them listed at the 26th easiest schedule right now. So yeah, I think that they could be a 50-win team in the Western Conference. They are also a team that is full of young guys. Young guys typically like to go hard every single night. They don't really take too many nights off. I'm thinking about the Timberwolves. I'm thinking about the Memphis Grizzlies. The teams that the teams with the younger guys on the squad that feel like they have more to prove than some of the older guys on the team on some of the older squads. So I'm thinking about the Golden State Warriors, right? So for me, I think, whenever you make these offseason acquisitions, somebody like Rudy Gobert, who never really takes a playoff anyway, I don't think, I'm really worried about them, low managing and different things like that. I think they play hard throughout the season, and I think I could potentially see them winning 50 games. And that's really all I got. That's all I got. I don't think that they win the division, but I guess if I'm saying that they win 50 games, then they're definitely going to be close. What are you guys' thoughts? Anybody else got any thoughts at all on the Minnesota Timberwolves. If so, request up. I'll get you guys up here and we can talk about it. Definitely want to hear from you guys if anybody got anything on the Timberwolves. On the YouTube page, I got Barsdale. Shout out to Barsdale, man. What's up with you, bro? Thinking opponents will shoot more threes on them because of the size. In the paint. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they're gonna have to, right? Like, nobody really wanted to try Rudy last year. And when you did, it was hard to get him in foul trouble. Defensive player of the year. We don't have to talk about how good his defense is. I think everybody knows that. Then you add another 7-footer like Cat, and you probably will have to score from the outside. We know Anthony Edwards is I still don't think he's reached his prime yet, but this guy potential is through the roof as well. So I really like this Minnesota Timberwolves team a lot. And I do think what you said, Barks, I think other teams will have to try to attack this team from the perimeter and get Rudy in some of that pick and roll. We've seen him not, be as successful in that situation, a la the series 2 years ago against the Clippers when Terrence Mann just kind of lit him up. They kept switching it. And I think Terrence Mann finished with almost 30 points one game. So, and that might have been an elimination game. So, yeah, Jamrock Kick says they gave us a fight last year, but D'Lo was a no-show in the playoffs, and I kind of talked about that. D'Lo killed us in the regular season, but was non-existent in the playoffs. Yep, and that's exactly what I kind of alluded to as well, Jamrock. D'Lo gonna have to show up, man, especially in the regular season. A lot of the times when these players don't play up to their own potential in the playoffs, the next season you kind of see them come out with a chip on their shoulder. So I am interested to see, how assertive D'Angelo Russell is early in the season, just to kind of see, how much was he working out? Did he try to do things to impact this game and take his game to the next level, right? Does he want to become a better defender? Is he looking to distribute the ball a little bit more? Can he step up and be the vocal leader and take on some of that responsibility that Patrick Beverley had, right? Because I talked about a lot of guys that they're adding, but I didn't say anybody named that I think is going to be a leader. Byron Forbes, Eric Pascal, Kyle Anderson, Slow Mo, Austin Rivers, Tarion Prince coming back. These guys are not necessarily the vocal leader that Patrick Beverley is. So you still need that locker room guy, right? You still need that locker room presence. So I am interested to see how that goes as well. I don't have any requests. So if I don't have any requests, I'm going to keep it moving. I'm going to just jump on the Cavs. If you guys want to contribute, or you got any thoughts, maybe you agree with what I'm saying, disagree, whatever the case might be, just request up and the mic is yours. But if we don't, I'll just move on. I'll move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is an interesting one, right? So both of these teams expected to make, leaps this year, even though we could potentially say that both of these teams made leaps last year. Let me get Greg up real quick. See if Greg want to chime in about the Timberwolves before we move on to the Cavs. Greg, what's going on, bro? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You good, man? What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Finally made it into one of these. Apologize, sir.
No. I appreciate you being here.
No, with the Wolves though, man. I think that 50 number is gonna be determined more towards the beginning of the season. Like, how many games does it take for them to figure out like how they're gonna like come together as a team? Because for me, Anthony Edwards was a guy that he would sit on the outside and then he would penetrate in. So for him, it's going to be a big improvement, or he's going to need to have a big improvement on his outside shooting, mid-range shooting, and then just figuring out what he's going to be able to do inside of his offense. Also, I just have a lot of question marks about this team. So for me, for them to get to 50 just right off the bat, I would have to say probably under. But there's a lot of building they have to do. They have to figure out how they're going to put the two big guys together, like you said, play with them along with D'Lo, and they have a lot of pieces that I just feel that they have to kind of not contribute, but like meld together in order to figure out what they're going to do. That's just my take on that one, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Greg, because what you're saying, Greg, is something that we can't overlook. And what I'm hearing you say is that just because it looks good on paper doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, right? Just because you bring over an impact player specifically on the defensive end that can alter shots, block shots, create a lot of havoc, and protect the paint doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be successful, especially giving up all of what they gave up. They bring in some pieces that, collectively can, kind of fill the void of what they had to give up in order to get a guy like Rudy Gobert. But just because you bring in guys doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, right? So I would agree. I would agree with you on that, Greg. And putting that number up there, 49.5 is, I mean, 48.5 is, it could be looked at as a tad bit too high. Last season, this division specifically finished, let's see. So they finished third in the division. So we take away Utah, of course, because Utah won't be good. They finished 49-33. They won the division. Denver finished a game behind Utah, 48-38. And then the Timberwolves finished 2 games behind Denver. So this year, I think of course, we haven't talked about Denver yet, but Denver's gonna be a lot better, right? Getting key guys back like Jamal Murray, Kevin Porter Jr., not Kevin Porter Jr., what's the kid name? Michael Porter Jr. Getting those guys back. They also have some additions at like KCP. So we'll talk about them just a tad bit more too. So it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be those 2 teams. Kind of fighting for the division, the Northwest Division in the Western Conference to see who can climb atop of that. But I'm interested to see what that looks like. Definitely interested to see what that looks like. Let me get my guy Joy up here. See if you want to chime in real quick on these Minnesota Timberwolves. Joy, if you can hear me, bro, the floor is yours.
Hey, what up, Chris?
What up, Joy? Appreciate you being here, bro. Yeah, you live.
Yeah, how you doing, my brother?
I'm good, bro. How you?
I'm good, man. Sorry, I didn't have good audio for a second.
No, you good. You good. It's all good, yeah.
What I was gonna say. Oh, what up, Greg? By the way, what I was gonna say is I agree with Greg, and the thing that keeps me in church on the wins is the fact that I feel like they might be some regular season tryhards. But I just wanted to come up and ask you this. So the majority of my unders are within the Eastern Conference because the East is, they're way better than the West. What I wanted to come up and ask you was, if we're talking about the Timberwolves as a 50-win team, but yet they still got to figure out how they mesh together, how they gel, all that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the fact that the Warriors and the Suns wins are set at about 51. Are we putting them on that level? Are we putting the Timberwolves at the same level of excellence as a team like Golden State and a team like Phoenix?
I would say no, Joy, and it's for what it's for the reasons that you and Greg kind of just talked about, right? It's the unknown. Could this team shock us all and finish top 3, top 4 up there with the Clippers, Golden State, and Phoenix? To be determined, right? Like we don't know what this is going to look like, and I'm not if you guys know from the betting space, I'm not a person that wants to jump out and take leaps and bounds to say, oh, I just know that this is going to work. So for me, I would wait, Jerry. I do think that, giving Anthony Edwards another offseason to develop his game is going to be, scary for the league, right? Greg talked about him, kind of building on his shooting. And I think that's going to be significant as well, because we've seen him go through these streaks where he might hit 5 in a row, 6 threes in a row. But then we've seen him also have games where he goes 1 for 6. And the next game, he might go 2 for 8 from the 3-point line. So is Anthony Edwards there to be that consistent player? Because on his good nights, he can be great. But on his poor nights, he looks like a role player, and sometimes worse than a role player. I've taken Anthony Edwards on nights when I'm like, oh, it's his night to go off, and he doesn't, right? So now adding in new guys, not just the Rudy Gobert, but adding in these other guys that we kind of talked about, as well, that does create a lot of chemistry issues. And chemistry is the thing that we can't necessarily grade when we're just looking at, stuff on a paper, right? Should this team win? Yes. Will this team win? To be determined. So I would be a little hesitant, Joey, to put them in the same conversation that I would, Golden State, that's going to bring everybody back for the most part. They got the same coach, they got their big 3, and everybody else can kind of be filled in. You got Jordan Poole coming back. And then for Phoenix, even though we thought that they were going to lose Aiden, they re-signed Aiden. Chris Paul comes back for another year. Devin Booker comes back. They had a major letdown to Dallas in the semifinals last year. So I expect them to come out, hungry and probably with a chip on their shoulder. Even though I think it's hard to walk around with that chip on your shoulder for too many years in a row, because they proverbially should have had one last year after going up 2-0 on the Milwaukee Bucks the year before and losing in the NBA Finals. So we got to kind of figure that out, Joy. But I don't know if I'm ready to place him up there yet. But my only rebuttal to myself and to you with that, though, Joy, is if we think that Golden State and Phoenix are going to finish 1 and 2, right, and then the Clippers will probably finish 3, right? Well, let's just say the Clippers finish 3. Who is that fourth team, right? We still got Memphis out there. We still got Dallas out there. We got the Timberwolves that's out there still. We don't really know exactly what this Laker team is going to be. Granted, all the moves that's still going on in the Western Conference and in the strings they're trying to pull over there. We also talked about the Pelicans yesterday. So it's just it's a real interesting time to be a basketball fan for sure, which is why I wanted to kind of hide these spaces and chop it up with you guys. You definitely bring up a lot of interesting points, Joy, and I'm glad you chimed in. I'm glad Greg chimed in for sure. VG, can you hear me, my brother? What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon to everybody. Much love to you, Chris. Shout out to the speakers. Spread love is the Brooklyn way. This Timberwolves team is very interesting to me this year, especially with the addition of Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert brings, I don't even want to say that on record. I don't know if he brings an inside presence. But what I do know is he rebounds, and when you expect him to. But I think the most interesting thing for me with his addition affecting the other positions in that starting five is and it's what everybody's thinking of is Karl Anthony Towns. And the first thing that pops in my head for me with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert playing the five is I really hope that this doesn't make Karl Anthony Towns more of a trigger happy big than what he is already. And I really, really hope that doesn't change his mentality in the way he attacks the way he uses offensive ability to attack the opposing opponents, and in the sense of like him straying away from the low post. You know what I mean? With the stature that Rudy Gobert presents in an offensive scheme, I could definitely see Karl Anthony Towns like, you know what, I'm not going down there. The paint is already filled. I see big man set up. He might want me to feed him to the post. The scheme or the coaching strategy might be in a situation where they try to feed him. I mean, I highly doubt that, but you never know. Everybody's got to touch the ball sooner or later. But that's what scares me a little bit with Karl Anthony Towns. I do like the sense that there is some type of defensive prowess that he brings, in the sense of like teams going at him into the hole. It's not going to be easy to clown on him. Like, I'm not saying it was last year, but if you look at their offense, how many points they allow, it's crazy. It's probably top 5 in the league right now. They score as much as they allow. So, with Rudy down there guarding the rim, I think there might be a little hesitation coming from other teams. But again, it goes back to them, abusing the switch. Rudy's not that good when he's out there on the perimeter. His mobility from side to side isn't that good either, from what I remember in his Utah days. That's very, intriguing to me with this Timberwolves team. Anthony Edwards, man. I mean, if you guys listen to me on Chris's podcast, and maybe others, but mostly I like to go to Chris's podcast. I don't know, not to be biased, but he's one of my faves. Anthony's probably personally one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching this kid play. I wasn't too excited that he came out in the movie on Netflix. And this is the only reason why I say this. And I'm using NBA history as an example, right? I didn't know that Kobe was offered the Jesus Shuttleworth acting position. And then I found out that he refused to take any part of that movie. And I'm like, damn, why the fuck would Kobe do that? And then, somewhere, I don't know if it was a podcast or reading an article or a certain book or whatever, but frankly, what I heard was that Kobe just wanted to concentrate on the league, on the NBA, and on his game. And I'm not saying that Ray Allen had a subpar career. I'm nowhere near that. He's a champion. one of the greatest NBA three-point shooters, and not only that, if y'all remember him in his Milwaukee days, the dude was a beast. You know what I mean?
Facts. So, yeah, he used to dunk on you back then.
Used to dunk on you back in the day. Give you the 1-2 cross dribble, little Grant Hill type of style. Really, he was a little more versatile, but you know what I mean? It's just the projection of his career, the way it went after the movie. I'm not saying that I'm speaking crazy right now, but just talking on some NBA stuff and historically speaking, like I hope this movie didn't do anything where it inflated his ego. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe he feels he's better than the team. I'm just throwing that shit out there. Allegations. Just
something to watch for. Yeah, something to watch for.
Yeah, exactly. Because I love that kid. And it's like you said, I feel there are moments where this is what I do know. If Anthony is more efficient this year, then he don't need to chuck 7 attempts from the 3-point line.
That's a fact.
Because what I think is he's always looking for at least, this is just my personal opinion when I'm watching him and keeping up in his box score, he's at least looking for 2 to 3 pointers made in the game. And he'll chuck up 7 until he gets 2 of them. He's like, I'm good. I hit my 2 for the game, and I'm ready to move on into whatever the fuck he was doing in that game. But I just feel like if he's more efficient from the 3-point line, and he hits 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5. Now we talking. Now Anthony, okay, now you pressing me. The defense is coming up to the 3-point line. Now I'm beating you off the dribble because the dude is nasty with that.
That's a fact.
So like. You know what I mean? So I just think if there is any improvement in his game in the sense of efficiency, I think there could be a different strategy going forward in the way he kind of like, again, with the way he attacks and the way he plays the game. Not on some 8 attempts from the 3-point line, not some like 24, 34 attempts in the game. Like, Karl Anthony Towns is going to need his touches. D'Angelo Russell is going to need his touches. That's the other interesting part for me too with this team. D'Angelo is the point guard, but sometimes I see Anthony Edwards coming up with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times in the game, you know what I mean? So who's your point guard here? They're both shooting guard. They're both shooting guard point guards.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, that's a fact.
You know what I mean? So who's really running your plays? You know what I mean? So it's like I like this team a lot. Do I see them coming out top 5? That's hard for me. Top 5 in the West.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but I do like this team a lot. They as always, they have high hopes, high ceilings. And honestly, I hope they do well. Carmelo, Dominican brother of mine, like, I hope he does well. I hope he does well.
Right. No, I appreciate that, VG. I appreciate that a lot. One thing that kind of sparked my interest while you was talking about that, and it goes back to what Joy was saying and what Greg was saying is when you add somebody like Rudy Gobert, of course your defense gets better. But and what you were saying to that, VG, is what does this do for a guy like Rudy Gobert, for a guy like Cat, for a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who can get his buckets in the post as well, right? Like you can dump the ball in the post and say, "Hey, Cat, I need a bucket. Put your back to the basket and get and give me a make a move for me." Now, if you try to run the offense through Karl Anthony Towns on the block in the post, then what does that leave Rudy Gobert? That leaves you to be able to double off of Rudy Gobert's guy unless he is rim running and cutting to the rim, right? So it's going to be interesting to see, if the coach can put him in a situation where, they can all be successful. And I think that's what we kind of all come back to when we talk about that. And we've been on this team for 30 minutes, 35 minutes to be exact. So I want to transition over just a tad bit and start talking a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers. If anybody else got anything, I'll definitely let you guys request up. But let's transition to the Western Conference now. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, we'll start with additions. We know the big one. Donovan Mitchell came over via trade with the Utah Jazz. But also, outside of that, they also get Darius Garland back, who signed a 5-year extension. He has to be extremely happy to have someone else that can play make, that he can give the ball to as well, especially since Colin Sexton was hurt so much last year. They also get Robin Lopez, the one with the curly hair. He is signed to a 1-year deal. They get Raul Neto. He came over, backup point guard. gonna be one of the backup point guard. Yeah, he played more point than he did shooting guard from the Washington Wizards. Then Rubio, who they had traded last year, or I can't remember if they traded him or they cut him, ended up coming back. So Rubio came back. I think they traded him. Rubio ended up coming back, and he returned on a 3-year deal. So now they really have the band back together. And of course, Colin Sexton is gone. They lost Matthew Dellavedova to the Kings, and then Lauri Markkanen also got traded to the Jazz. So you lose Lauri Markkanen, a 7-foot shooter who I think has a lot of potential in the league, especially if he can take his game to the next level. But you get, Donovan Mitchell is a perennial all-star, probably one of the top 10 best scorers in the league. Just give him the ball and go get a bucket. Somebody that, has a lot of shot volume, but also can just create his own shot. He can also create for others. Somebody that plays hard all the time. I like Donovan Mitchell on this team a lot. We saw the Cavs last year go from, if you remember, the team at the beginning of the year was not supposed to be good at all. They were ATS wagon. If you bet on the Cavaliers, because they were dogs every single game at the beginning of the season, this team just covered and covered and covered and covered and covered. And this was all throughout November, all throughout December, into January, until the market picked up on it. And then they kind of corrected themselves just a tad bit, and you start seeing this team be favorites sometimes. But whether they were at home, whether they were on the road, this team was one of the best ATS cover teams, of all teams in the NBA. I can't remember exactly who finished first, who finished second, but I know they were definitely top 3 in that regard. They also, towards the end of the season, started to experience a lot of injuries, right? We remember Evan Mobley getting hurt. And I didn't even mention, in addition, they also signed his brother. They also drafted his brother. So Evan Mobley has a little brother who's built just like him, 7 foot, real linky, drafted him as well. But going back to the recap, they experienced a lot of injuries late. Jared Allen was hurt. He missed about a month and a half. Evan Mobley was hurt. We saw a lot of Darius Garland having to do it by himself last year. So it's going to be interesting to see if those guys can stay healthy. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have a track record where he gets hurt a lot. He typically plays, a lot of games. I watched his intro presser. I think came out on Wednesday or Thursday, and he seemed extremely excited to be there. He said he grew up, being a Cavaliers fan. Not 100% sure why, but he grew up being a Cavaliers fan. Just loved that team. And is extremely excited to be there now. They took, the next step last year with Colin Sexton. So this is one of those teams for me that didn't have a lot of expectation at all last year. Some expectation to be just, to be pretty good, but not make the playoffs or make a run at all, to making, to getting all the way to the play-in game and losing, falling short there. They definitely took the leap to the next step. This year, they will not, be a lot of, they won't be dogs at all. It's going to be really different, seeing them as dogs. They will be favored in a lot of games. Last year, they finished the season 3rd in the Central. They finished 44-38. They have a projected win total of 46.5 this year. And I talked about this a little bit on Prop Guys podcast, the Winner Circle. I was on with him. Be sure to check my guy out. Love his pod. I absolutely love this number. 46.5. They won 44. They won 44 games last year without, a team that was fully healthy throughout the whole season. I think that this number is just a tad bit too low. They also have the 25th easiest schedule, which means that they have the fifth easiest schedule, 25th hardest schedule. And I think that I honestly think that they have a real good chance to, give. I think they flip-flop with the Chicago Bulls, who finished 46-36. They finished 2 games above the Cleveland Cavaliers last year. I think that the Cavs probably finished better than the Bulls. And honestly, I could see them competing with the Milwaukee Bucks to win the division. Now, will they be better than Milwaukee? I'm not saying that. But do I think that they could compete to win the division at a plus 3? I saw it at plus 360 on Caesars. I think so. Like I do think so. What do you guys think about that? I'm interested to hear any thoughts on that. They get the Twin Towers back this year. Everybody should be healthy. Like I said, you bring in a guy like Donovan Mitchell. You bring in Darius Garland comes back this year. I'm pretty sure he's still hungry. Any thoughts on the Cleveland Cavaliers this year?
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. Originally, when I first looked at it, I believe I had saw 46 and a half is pretty juiced to the over. And my first thought was thinking how good the East is and thinking like these dudes are gonna, the same thing that we said about the Timberwolves, that these dudes are gonna have to figure out the chemistry. Like, is Mitchell gonna come over and fuck up the chemistry? I don't think so. I think that Donovan Mitchell is a pro's pro. He's a good dude. He's going to be great for the locker room. And I don't think he's really going to be trying to do too much when the season first kicks off. And the thing that took me off of the under as well, and why I leaned the over for their wins, and I'm probably going to get there, but I haven't bet it quite yet, is the fact that you look at what this team did last year with how injury-ridden that they were. They still won 44 games. And now you're going to – and obviously anything can happen. You hope for no injuries. Anything can happen. But now you get them coming into this season healthy, and you got a facilitator, and I don't know if you can call him a veteran. I'd say a vet. You got a facilitator and a vet within Donovan Mitchell to help keep the young Bucks on track, give them pointers, all that. I mean, look what Mitchell did for the Jazz. You look at the Jazz this year, they're going to be god-awful. Yeah, they lost Gobert as well, but Mitchell is going to be a big reason for how trash that Utah team is going to be. But, yeah, originally I had looked at the under, and then I don't feel an under at all anymore, just because I had remembered the health issues that they had last year, and now you're bringing in a pro's pro. I look at the over as well. You're just asking for 3 more wins than last year. I know how good the East is. I disagree with them competing with my Bucks, but definitely I think that they'll finish up there with them. 100%, they will be better than the Bulls. Bulls had a magical run last year. It's not going to be the same. So I do expect them to pick up a couple more divisional wins. Typically they struggle with the Bulls, so you can add on a couple right there. I agree with you on the over there, Chris.
Okay. Yeah. So Joy, my take on them is and it's crazy. I keep doing these teams that kind of align on the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. My take on them potentially winning more games than the Bucks is more so centered around the Bucks being motivated throughout the regular season versus being motivated just to get through the regular season so they can get to the playoffs. I think the Bucks were one of the teams last year that kind of, and we see it all the time, right? Like we talk about a lot of the things that we end up hitting on last year was teams or players playing against the Bucks from 3 because their 3-point defense was god awful. But we know that they can turn it up. We know how elite these guys are on defense when they need to be. We saw it 2 years ago when the playoffs started, right? We saw what they did to Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton in the finals, right? And then we saw it again last year. That Chicago team that kind of limped into the playoffs barely could score 80 points in a couple of those games in the first round last year. So I thought I think a lot of what happened to them last year was they got bit by the injury bug. Losing somebody of Chris Middleton's stature that late in the season really bit them when they needed them most against a team like Boston. So my take on that, Joey, was just that you get these teams that are younger, right? You get these teams that have these feisty guys that really have something to prove. A guy like Darius Garland, a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who's Donovan Mitchell isn't, he's no spring chicken now, but he still hasn't been in the league, extremely long, right? Guys like Jared Allen, guys like Evan Mobley, who probably feel like they have more to prove than some of these vet guys like a Drew Holiday and a Chris Middleton and a Bobby Portis, right? Like I feel like they are the Cavaliers could be that team in the Eastern Conference that the Memphis Grizzlies was in the Western Conference, right? Just as far as like youth and feeling like they have more to play for. So that's the only reason I thought that they could even contend with the team like Milwaukee, who I could kind of see, like they'll take the regular season serious, but extremely serious. I don't think so, Joy. What do you think?
Yeah, so I see BG's got his hand up. I just wanted to talk with you on that note real quick. So for me, and this is an angle that I have in pretty much every sport, and that's a couple NFL futures I have right now, is I think that championship hangover is a real thing. And so I think that, because I mean, they didn't start off hot last year, the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know the exact record, but knowing this team, I know that they do try really hard in the regular season. But the thing is, because I agree with you, there is a fine line with it, is because on one end, you don't have the championship hangover anymore, but on the second end, the Bucks are sitting there and they're thinking, oh man, if we just had Chris Middleton healthy, we're probably in the finals.
That's a fact, yeah.
So it's hard to tell. You wipe away the championship hangover, but now maybe they're thinking, we really want to be healthy for this postseason because we know what could have happened last year. So that's going to be interesting to see how much they turn up in the first couple weeks of the season. I think that's the biggest tell right there.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Joy. I definitely agree with that. We'll see how motivated Giannis. And Giannis will come into the season. All those guys that's playing Euroball will come into the season, in a lot better shape. Not that we ever had to question Giannis anyway, because Giannis always came into the season. He's a professional's professional as well, like you said, Joy. So Giannis always kind of came into the season great, but he could really take the league by storm early on, just based on that. So definitely appreciate that, Joy, and I agree with that as well. VG, I want to kick it to you, and then let's go. I want to kick it to you after we hear from VG.
Yeah, just a few things to what y'all were talking about. Chris, yeah, I mean, we don't know. My bad. Let me get away from the street. We don't know exactly what's on the organization's mind. We all like to think it's championship, but if I definitely feel like Cleveland was definitely thinking about Milwaukee in the off season, because when I look at this roster, this shit is big. Pause. And it's like, Milwaukee is a big team themselves, man. That's something that we saw that was kind of like, stifling Boston in that series was their height sometimes. You know what I mean? Because it was difficult for them to score inside on them. So I'm looking at this roster, and it's like backups to backups. You got Evan Mobley center, Kevin Love forward center. You got Brook Lopez center. You got Jared Allen center. You know what I mean? So it's like, shit, they definitely were thinking. Then you got a couple of guards, with Karis LeVert, Chandler Gordon, and freaking, Lamar Stevens, and then our favorite Darius Garland. But with Donovan and Ricky providing, I don't. It's like you said, he's no spring chicken in the sense of like, Donovan with how many years he had in the league. I think he had like 5 or 6. He's still a young man, but he definitely picked up some NBA veteranship on in those years with Utah. So I feel like he could bring in some of that, but there's definitely has to be a different style of playing coming from Donovan. That's one thing I know. Donovan also one, you can throw it up there. He's one of my favorite players in the league too. Utah is my favorite team besides Brooklyn. So I grew up a Stockton and Malone fan. So that what I saw Donovan doing, taking 12 attempts from the 3-point line, like, I don't think that's going to be too beneficial, even though they could rebound. But I don't know, like, for me personally, I would like to see a different style of playing, again, more efficiency, more smart decisions on his behalf. Ricky coming back for a 3-year deal, I was shocked on that, to be honest with y'all. But I definitely, I don't know if they see him as future trade value to put him in something, maybe midway deal, in the season. But I like him coming in for the second unit and again providing some leadership and smart decisions. Ricky, he does get turnovers, but it's not gonna be stupid shit. Like this guy could pass the ball. So. What the fuck, these boys? My bad.
You good, BG. Take your time, bro.
They pulling wheelies out here. I don't know why. I'm thinking Saturday. So yeah, you guys were mentioning, like, they like Cleveland does play hard. Their ATS again, I feel this season is going to be on the money. You know what I mean? They're definitely going to, the books are all going to be all over it, but I feel they're still going to be fighting. And hopefully they know, don't go too crazy and try to reach the finale of the season with some type of health so y'all could do y'all thing in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Shit could be unfortunate with certain players have health and injuries. There's no way of knowing that. But like definitely, now with the roster that you guys have, you don't got to go too heavy with those players that were probably once injured before, and finding other ways to get production out of them. Going back to what man was saying with Milwaukee, yeah, I think Milwaukee at the end of the day, that's the team that last year was like, nah, we're trying to get to the playoffs. You know what I mean? We'll let a couple, like towards the end of the season, they had a chance to push for the best record. You know what I mean? At least be on top, first or second. You know what I mean? But I feel like they knew, like, yo, let's just get there, and when we do, we could bust ass like we always do, because they could turn it on. That's the shit with Milwaukee. Milwaukee has that ability. They have that championship pedigree. They have that veteranship where they could be like, okay, now we understand what this moment and what this situation is. We're pushing forward. So, and Cleveland has that. Even though they have the talent. And like Chris was saying, you got guys that are going to be scrappy this year because they're going to be playing for money and contracts. Let's not forget. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just think like Milwaukee would just turn it on at the end. But over on the season, I can't blame y'all for going on the over. Can they? I see them going 49 and a half, maybe 51. So somewhere around there. That's what I think 50 might be a good number for Cleveland because they can fight, and they got a pretty good. Again, they got a pretty good balanced roster to me. You get some mid-season attributions, and shit, we never know where Cleveland can end up.
I agree with that, VG. That's what I was thinking too. I think this team could get the 50 for sure, VG. I appreciate your comments, my brother, as always. Excellent insight. Let's go sports. Let's kick it to you, my brother. What's going on? Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I agree. I think they can definitely get to 50 plus wins. My concern with them is, even though they have 50 wins, I'm concerned that they'll have a tough matchup getting out in the first round, depending on, obviously what that matchup be. Because even though they, acquired Mitchell, I don't think that they're, pound for pound on paper with the other top teams in the Eastern Conference, Boston, Milwaukee, Philly. I still, from a roster perspective, I still think Brooklyn's, will be a problem in a playoff series for Cleveland. So I think what it's going to take for this year is I think the key is going to be another. I think it's fine if Donovan Mitchell is your leading scorer, but I think somebody's going to have to step up and be a very important player for them, to the point where even though Donovan Mitchell is our number one scoring option, somebody else, I think that has to be Mobley, has to have that second year,
take that leap, right? Yeah, just take that leap. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. As you were saying that, let's go. I was actually thinking the same thing before you said him. I was thinking it's probably got to be him, right? We saw him last year. I felt like he was in a spot last year. Granted, all the injuries on the team, that he would be that guy to kind of step up, but he just didn't have it in his game yet. So, like you said, I would agree with that. I think it's going to be interesting to see if his game can take that leap that we all think that he has the potential to get to, for sure.
Wins won't mean nothing if you get to the 5th seed and you got to play Brooklyn in the first round, and if they're fully healthy and if they're in sync, we're going to be compelled to put our money on that Brooklyn team. If Durant's healthy, if Kyrie's healthy, and if Ben Simmons is healthy, and they got TJ Warren, they've made some transactions.
Absolutely.
Even a team like that could be a problem for us, and Cleveland could be sent home in the first round.
Yeah, and it's crazy that we're thinking about Cleveland, making the playoffs and where they could potentially finish this year, when last year we didn't even have expectations for them to make the playoffs. So definitely a team that's trending in the right direction for sure. Let's go. I appreciate you being here, bro. Appreciate you contributing. I love what you had to say for sure. Let me kick it to MSG because I know you came up earlier, bro. MSG, the floor is yours. Then I'm gonna kick it to you, Zay.
Hello?
Yeah, yes, sir. You good?
First time talking. Appreciate you letting me talk. Big fan of the spaces. Appreciate what you do for the community. I actually wanted to talk about the Timberwolves because I'm a big Timberwolves fan. I'm sorry to go back.
No. Go ahead. Do your thing.
But we're giving Donovan Mitchell all this credit. Like talking about he's a good vet. Why are we not doing the same for Rudy? Like Rudy could have the same effect on the Timberwolves. He was in the playoffs battling with Mitchell same way, and I feel like we sleep on his value with little things like being a screener roller. Now we talk about Ant. If Ant really takes that next step and he can develop his playmaking, I can see Rudy easily averaging 15 and 15 or 15 and 20. As crazy as it sounds, like Timberwolves are one of the fastest paced teams in the league. Also, that Rudy, oh man, I feel like the sky's the limit. Of course, it's gonna take time for him to gel and stuff, but they got little key pieces too. Like they got Kyle Anderson, Austin Rivers, good vets, good for the locker room. Feel like they got a good shooter in Breen Forbes. Like this team is very, very, very scary. Very, very scary. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that for sure. One thing one rebuttal I have for you, or just a question that I have for you, MSG, is we talked about pace, right? I kind of talked about pace. You mentioned it as well. The Timberwolves were one of the fastest paced teams last year, with up there with like the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Utah Jazz actually was one of the slower paced teams. I think at least top two. I don't know if it was them or Dallas, but teams just kind of playing at a snail pace, walking the ball up the court all the time, trying to run a lot of half court offense. How, do you think? And we talked about it needing to gel. How do you think that kind of weighs out, just from your perspective, with Rudy Gobert playing for one of the slowest paced teams now on one of the fastest paced teams? Do you think they slow the offense down for him, or do you think that he conditions himself to be able to fit into their offense? Say it one more time. You broke up just a tad bit, MSG.
I've been watching him. I feel like he can keep up.
Okay.
I'm watching him in the Eurobasket. There's a very fast pace over there. He keeps up. He runs up and down. As long as he's not in foul trouble, he's active. So like I feel like that's gonna play into their hand. That's another reason I feel like there's just more rebounds for him. Up tempo. One of the problems that the Timberwolves had was they take bad shots, but they were never getting boards. Like they always got out rebounded. They do that, they score. Like you're gonna really have to outscore that team, and it's not gonna be in the paint now. Like, you're gonna actually have to probably outshoot them.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I respect your opinion on that, my brother. We're gonna see how it go too, because I think that's one of the big loopholes for the people who are just a tad bit scared of what the potential for this team could be. So definitely appreciate your contributions, my brother, and you contributing.
I'll be back to be talking about them throughout the season.
Oh, for sure, bro. We gonna get there for sure. We definitely gonna get there.
I'm letting y'all know.
Absolutely, and absolutely, bro, absolutely, anytime. All these joints recorded too, so you can always go back and chop me up, and you put me on blast when I say something that won't right. But I'm taking notes, and I got all my my projections as well. I haven't put a futures ticket in yet, but I got a lot of them that I'm looking at. I just haven't placed them yet. Let me kick it to Zay. Zay, what's going on, my brother? Tell me about talk to me a little bit about the Cavs or the Timberwolves, whichever one you want to talk about, bro.
Hey, what's going on, man?
What up, bro? Yeah, you good?
Yeah, man. Look, I don't know how much of the Cavs y'all talked about, because I got into the space kind of late. So, like, as far as finishing up top 8 teams in the East, where do you see Cleveland finishing at? I got them at least top 6.
Yes, I don't really think you can argue that. We talked about the chemistry thing, but I think they definitely finished top 6. I talked about their projected win totals, they being at 46 and a half. This team won 40. The projected win total got them at 46 and a half, so 47 games. I absolutely love that spot for them. I think that they could get to 50 wins this season. Last year they went 44-38. Granted, all the injuries, not having Darius Garland. So I think, you know, not having Darius Garland for certain parts of the season. Evan Mobley was hurt. What's the boy name with the hair? Jared Allen was hurt. So I think, you know, we make these projections, of course, not knowing what happens as far what's going to happen as far as injury wise, but I like them. I could see them finishing top 5, top 6 up there with you know, with Boston and Milwaukee and Philly, Miami. Maybe they finish right after, you know, them 4, or if not, you know, you throw Brooklyn in there too, and then they still finish 6. So I like them. I think that they jump over teams like Chicago. I actually think they jump over Atlanta too. We're gonna see what happened with Atlanta, but I think I got the Cavs rated a little bit higher than Atlanta right now, based on skill.
I agree with you about that. I don't really trust Atlanta right now because they got a lot of things going on in the organization. They got some moves they need to make that hasn't been made yet. So I don't. Right now, I see Atlanta at least between 8 and 10 as far as in the East. Because I don't trust the situation right now. They got some moves they said they was going to make, but they never made yet.
Yeah, so you're just kind of waiting for that to happen. Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah. I can see that. I think Atlanta makes the playoffs again next year, but we gonna see how that go. We definitely gonna see how that go. You got anything you wanted to say about the Timberwolves there? I ain't putting you on the spot. You can say no.
I mean, only thing I can say is on paper they look like a playoff team, but like I said, I gotta at least see 15 to 20 games, how they like the first 15, 20 games of the season to really get a real sense of what Minnesota gonna be. I love Ant. I don't love Cat. I like Cat. I'm not really a big Rudy fan. D'Lo is hit or miss with me, man, but like Ant is a superstar on the rise. So I mean, I think he can carry them at least to the. I want to say the 6th seed, but I just don't trust it. If anything, 7 or 8.
Okay. No, I think so. I mean, we all just kind of, you know, share insight, share input. I think that they could win. I think they could get to the you know, the 5th seed, or probably 5th or 6th seed too. So we not too far off for sure. Appreciate you being here, Zay. Appreciate your insight as always, my brother. I want to kick it back to Greg because I know Greg been waiting for a minute, and then I'm gonna get to my guy Annie. Greg, talk to me. Absolutely, bro. Always, Greg, talk to me a little bit about the Cavs. I know you told me about the Timberwolves. What you thinking about the Cavs this year, Greg? What's your expectations?
I think that they're tremendously deep, man. I was sad to see Ricky Rubio leave last year in the trade. I'm really happy they got him back.
Me too, bro.
I think you kind of touched on it, and or maybe not you. Somebody touched on it. He's going to be it was a MSG, I think, or I can't remember. Anyways, he's going to be tremendous for their second team. Just this team is way deeper than like who we were just talking about, the Wolves, man. Like they can go 10 deep on you, man, and you can get contributions from everybody. Just like you said, if you need someone to go get you a bucket and bucket get in time, you have Donovan Mitchell for you, man. Like this team just has all the right pieces to. If they can put it together, like in January, February, man, and they can make a run and stay healthy, they can go pretty far into the playoffs. In my opinion, I think they can go into the second round or even the conference finals, man. I like what they put together. I think they got the injury bug, unfortunately, last year, but right before that, man, they were trending in the right direction. They fight hard. They like their coach. They play for their coach. I think that this is just an all-around really good team. But the East is stacked this year. But I think they make noise this year, man. This is a team that I believe is going to be making noise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you said exactly what I said. One part you hit on, Greg, that I didn't hit on that I wanted to is you talked about coaching. JB Bickerstaff is definitely a guy that they fight for. I think they love their coach. He's a player's coach. You know, he's been there for a little while now. They just gave him an extension last year as well. So he's going to, probably going to be there for a while. The only thing that gives me just a cause for concern is what VG said about, is Donovan Mitchell, ready to, kind of dumb down on some of the crazier shots when he can get better shots now that he has better teammates? And I would say yes to that. I think that he is. Just based on who he is as a person, who he is as a player. I think he's adjustable and adaptable to new systems. If they're going to work, I think he wants to win a championship, and he feels like in the position that he's in now, they definitely have a better chance than where he was coming from, which is probably gives him motivation to want to go out there and work hard every single day. But I love JB Bickerstaff for this team as well. Let me kick it to appreciate your comments, Greg. Let me kick it to Andy real quick, and then we probably gonna wrap up. Andy, talk to me a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers. What you got?
Hey Chris, my Twitter's been bugging all day, so not being able to hop on earlier, but glad I'm here now. I think the Cavs with getting Donovan Mitchell was just to upgrade on their guard positions that they really sort of needed because they really needed scoring outside of Darius Garland doing everything on that end, or Lauri Markkanen jacking up like 30-footers and or them just having to rely on a Jet Allen and Darius Garland pick and roll, which was one of their more productive sets. So Donovan Mitchell adds that dynamism which they didn't have last year. Karis LeVert, he's a good scorer, but he's not as dynamic and as a great a scorer as Mitchell is for sure. So I think that Mitchell takes this team and gives them that much needing scoring boost that they need, because a lot of times you look at the Cavs and you're just like, okay, where exactly are the points going to come from? How many times are they going to run this pick and roll? How many times are they going to run this this random dribble handoff that teams in the like we saw in the plane, like the teams are easy to adjust to that and can like defend them out of the game on a lot of those actions. It's not easy to defend when you have a guard like Donovan Mitchell who can jump out of the gym as well as shoot lights out from deep as well. And he's not. I don't expect him to be hitting 10 threes a game. I don't think that they're going to take as many threes because that's just not the way the Cavs play. But I think he's going to have to become a more efficient version of himself and a more I guess controlled is the right word, mature version of himself, where he's not just chucking up shots because he has to, because he'll have all these tools around him where he's able to run offenses with Darius Garland again, who's one of the more dynamic guards in the NBA. So I like the addition for them. The only issue is their perimeter. They don't have any defense on the perimeter at all. I mean, like you can argue that Donovan Mitchell is a better defender than he showed, in his last year at Utah. But again, they're both like 6 feet or under. Like Donovan Mitchell, a lot of people don't realize this, but he's actually not that tall. Like he's 6 feet, and he has speed. He has the athleticism to sort of defend, but it depends on how engaged he is, and a lot of times he's not shown that engagement with the defensive end. And Allen and Mobley, I mean, the great safety nets, but at the end of it, in the playoffs, when it comes down to it, it's your perimeter and the guys that are playing significant minutes that it comes down to that. Like it comes down to whether those guys are just going to get blown by and going to have to rely on their centers and their wings to do all the work, or if they can hold their own against elite guards and elite wings that they're going to play against, because the East is stacked this year. They have a lot of good teams this year, so it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I think it's going to take a while for them to gel as well. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is going to adjust as quickly as people think, because he's played with a system where they have 43s a game, 53s a game. Like last year they averaged I think most in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to take a little bit to adjust, because that's definitely not happening, because He's going to have Jared Allen. He's going to have Evan Mobley. Darius Garland can shoot, but I don't like JD Bickerstaff's system is not pace and space. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, and I think that's going to take a while for him. But I think other than that, if they gel, they might. This might be a good core group to build on, where they can add wings, where they can add good winning players around, and build on the success that they had this season, because they haven't made the playoffs in a while now. And I think the priority for them would be to make the playoffs and win maybe a round or two, cause some noise, be sure that this trade is going to work. Like a lot of the other trades, the big trades that have happened, like to show that it works. And I think they're going to be like, I think Donovan Mitchell, he looks excited to play. He looks excited to play in Cleveland. So I feel like it's going to take a while, but I think in the end it's going to work and add a big. I think they're going to make some noise in the conference, and I think they're going to do well. I don't think I'm too keen on their team total over because again they also have a lot of injury-prone players. So I'm not like health is going to be something to watch for them, but I think they're a really solid team on paper. I really like what they've done and the pieces they've been able to retain. And they haven't, like, if you look at it, they haven't really given that much away for getting Donovan Mitchell as well. In terms of their subtractions, they've given Lauri Markkanen away, and they gave away their rookie as well as Colin Sexton, who they were very likely not re-signing, like not too keen on re-signing anyway. So I think it's a good upgrade, a good addition, and I think moving forward they're going to have. I think they're going to have a successful season by their standards. I think a lot of people have them, saying expect them to be someone that's going to challenge for the third seed, for home court. I don't think they are. But I think they're going to be much more improved, and I trust JB Bickerstaff and his staff to do, to integrate their system into making it successful.
Yeah, and that's a great breakdown, bro. And I think I agree with a lot of that. But specifically what you said about Donovan Mitchell and, just having to play in a different system, similar to what we talked about. It's crazy how I pick two teams each day, and we find so many similarities in those teams. Rudy Gobert coming from a much slower paced team and having to play, on a much faster pace now. And then you talked about Donovan Mitchell coming from, a team where, the threes were just going up all the time, and JB Bickerstaff his system is not like that at all. So it's definitely going to be interesting. And you make a great point about, just the injury prone players, but for some reason, I just feel like this could be the year for them to, actually get to the playoffs. I do like them to get to the playoffs. I do like them to win, to go over their win total, even though I haven't bet it yet. But I think some of that hesitancy, in the books, kind of putting it just a tad bit higher, maybe 49.5, maybe 50.5, is, like you said, we've all said, like, the East has gotten exponentially better this year. KD and Kyrie didn't go anywhere. Joel Embiid will be healthy next year. James Harden looked like he actually in shape over the offseason, which has never happened before. We just have so many things going on in the Eastern Conference. Chris Middleton will be back. The Celtics only got better. So, yeah, I think, some of that hesitancy to put their win total up just a tad bit higher, even though it has risen 2 or 3 games, is what we just kind of talked about. So, I think we'll leave it there, man. We've been on for an hour. I've been on for almost an hour and a half. I appreciate you guys for, jumping in, tapping in with me, giving your input and your insight. Joey, Greg, Zay, Let's Go, MSG, Annie. I know a couple other guys were on here as well. If you jumped in late, this is the third NBA teams preview that I've done so far. I'm doing 2 teams a day until the preseason starts in 2 weeks. We have basketball on the 30th. The Golden State Warriors will play the Washington Wizards in Japan at 6 a.m. Eastern time. And then we also have it's one more other game. I can't remember exactly who it was. It's a night game that's also not going to be played in the U.S. On Thursday, when I started this, I did the team preview for the New Orleans Pelicans and Atlanta Hawks. Yesterday, we did the Clippers and the Nets. Today, we just talked about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tomorrow, we have the San Antonio Spurs and the Chicago Bulls. Probably won't spend too much time on San Antonio, but we'll talk about the Bulls because I think we'll get some interesting takes. You know, them getting a couple key guys back. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. And then Monday we'll look ahead to the Charlotte Hornets and the Denver Nuggets. So yeah, I like what was said today. I appreciate you guys for being here. If you missed any of this, everything, as I've already said, is being recorded. The spaces are recorded on my page. Be sure to tap in, check it out if you're interested at all. Also, everything's recorded on my YouTube channel as well. Crispy Capping 2 P's, 2 N's over there. I appreciate you guys for being here. Tomorrow's show will be a little earlier, probably about 11 a.m., just to kind of get it out the way before football starts. I'll see you guys then. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Go Dodgers, because I got them in a little parlay with the Astros. So go Astros. Uriah's gonna bring us some money home tonight. Good luck on all your MLB bets tonight. College football, I'm about to go tap back in. Appreciate y'all for being here again. Y'all be good, man.